populations decline, ensure the resources saved are invested directly into those communities. So they want to close them rather than have them for some very bad people, people that are not going to behave when they get out. You see that in New York. They allowed a lot of criminals out, and those criminals are causing havoc. And then they got rid of their incredible and legendary crime squad. And bad things are happening in New York. Bad things are happening. I love New York. I hate to see what's going on. End solitary confinement. Free federal housing for former inmates. So federal housing now can go to inmates, former inmates. Rejoin Paris Climate Accord and seek an even higher level of restrictions. Oh, I didn't notice that. Oh, I see. So they want to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, and they want to seek an even higher level of restriction. In other words, make it worse than it was. Mandate net zero carbon emissions for homes, offices, and all new buildings by 2030. That basically means no windows, no nothing. It's very hard to do. I tell people when they want to go into some of these buildings, how are your eyes? Because they won't be good in 5 years. And I hope you don't mind cold office space in the winter and warm office space in the summer, because your air conditioning is not the same as the good old days. Mandate zero carbon emissions from power plants by 2035. Zero. We're talking about zero. Nothing can go in the air. Mandate net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And I believe he's changing that. He's bringing it down. He wants no petroleum product. He wants no oil or gas. I don't think Texas is going to do too well. They're going to get rid of about 7 million jobs if you go by the Biden plan. I don't think that Oklahoma, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, you're going to be too happy with that, and many other states, Ohio. Mandate all 500,000 school buses and all 3 million government vehicles be changed to zero-emission vehicles within 5 years. I've heard of worse than that. Install 500,000 taxpayer-funded charging stations nationwide. Here's a bad one, really bad one. End school choice. There is nothing that the African American community wants more than school choice. And mothers and fathers are going to be very happy to see him be defeated just on that alone. End school choice. So Joe Biden wants to end school choice. End tax credit scholarships serving disadvantaged students in 26 states. Oppose 14 million Americans with education savings accounts. And get rid of school choice, having to do with school choice. Eliminate school choice in Washington, D.C. You know what they've done in Washington. They have some incredible example right here. Example. I know of one example. I think they have a number of them, but one is incredible. Abolish all charter schools. Charter schools are doing great. Ban funding for charter schools in poor neighborhoods. We don't want charter schools in poor neighborhoods. Well, that's not fair. Abolish educational standards. Abolish in the suburbs. You're going to abolish the suburbs with this. Enforce Obama-Biden's radical AFFH. That's the AFFH regulation that threatens to strip localities of federal affordable housing funds unless they change their zoning laws to fit the federal government's demands. So what you have, I mean, I've been watching this for years in Westchester, coming from New York. They want low-income housing built in a neighborhood. Well, I'm ending that rule. I'm taking it out. So I spoke with Ben Carson the other day. We're going to be taking it out. I've watched that whole thing go, and now they want to make it twice as bad in the suburbs. In the suburbs. Mothers aren't happy about that. Fathers aren't happy about that. They worked hard to buy a house, and now they're going to watch the housing values drop like a rock, and that has happened. Drop like a rock. So we're not going to do that. We're going to do the exact opposite. Probably there has never been a time, and this is just a few, it's much worse than that. We did this very quickly. It's probably never been a time when candidates are so different. We want law and order. They don't want law and order. We want strong, closed borders with people able to come in through merit, through a legal process. They don't want to have any borders at all. They're going to rip down the wall. It was hard to get that built, and now it's almost completed. It'll be completed by a little after the end of the year. They want to rip it down, and it's had such an impact. It's incredible. It stops trafficking, human trafficking of women and children, but women mostly. Human trafficking, one of the worst things ever, all at a level that it's never been at because of the internet. You wouldn't think, you think of it as an ancient statement. You wouldn't think that's possible today, but it's human trafficking of women and children. And they want to let that continue. The wall has stopped it so much because they will go over to a section where there aren't people, not an entry point, and they'll make a left into the United States. They're on their way. They can't do that anymore. We have a 30-foot wall that goes 6 feet into the ground. It stops a lot of the tunneling because they're pretty good at tunnels. But we watch the tunnels, and we have equipment for that. But you can't make a left anymore and come into the United States loaded up with human traffic. So they want to take down the wall. They want to have open borders. Think of open borders today, though, with the pandemic. I mean, the timing is sort of interesting, but with the pandemic. So there's never been a time when two candidates were so different. I mean, I've seen races where it's like the same exact platforms. I'm even talking about essentially Democrat, Republican. There's not that much difference. There's a little difference, but there's not much. You choose one because you like the way they look. You like the way they sound. You like the way they talk. You like something about one and you don't like the other. But there's, there's never been a difference. Here's one of the greatest differences. This is without question the single biggest difference if you want law and order. For instance, I enacted recently when I saw all that was going on with federal monuments. We don't have the right to do states, although we're trying to find it. But with the monuments where they wanted to rip down Andrew Jackson, they wanted to rip down George Washington. They were actually heading over to the Jefferson Memorial, if you can believe that. But this has been going on, and I found an act that we've used, and we have many, many people in jail right now. Many, many people in jail all over the country because they tried to destroy or in some cases got it down, a federal statue or monument. We haven't had anybody making a move since I enacted this. I signed an executive order a couple of weeks ago, and it says very simply, 10 years in jail. You do it, 10 years in jail. The amazing part is we were able to catch everybody because thanks to all of you on television, we appreciate it. But we have their pictures. We have the man standing on Andrew Jackson's horse. We have the man standing by General George Washington. We have everybody standing. They were going to go for the Emancipation Proclamation, Abraham Lincoln, standing with the young man who was being freed. And we said, we're going to do something. We can't let this happen. Now, it could be removed at some point. You go through a process, a legal process, go through Congress, whatever. I understand that. At the same time, some people like these statues and monuments, but it can be removed, but you have to go through a legal process. So they were going to have 20 to 25,000 people that night. Nobody showed up. Nobody. You know that because you were disappointed to see that. The next night, I believe 22 people showed up. They said, we're going to make it Friday night instead. And 22 people showed up. 4 were actually arrested because we have pictures of them knocking down other statues. So they're in jail now. So there has never been an election where we've had this kind of difference. We want strong borders. Without borders, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, without borders, you don't have a country. They don't want to have borders. They want to have open borders. It's radical left, and it'll destroy our country. 20 years ago, Venezuela was a very rich country, one of the richest anywhere. Per capita, one of the richest, tremendous oil reserves. Now they don't have water, they don't have food, they don't have medicine. We do everything we can to take care of the people, but they have nothing. And that's exactly the ideology that you have going over here. If I wasn't there to stop it, if I wasn't here to say, no way, that's not going to happen, we'd be in some mess. We'd be in some mess. And Pelosi and Schumer and Bernie and Joe, they'll never stop it. They don't have the power, the strength to stop it. It's beyond them. But we do. So there's never been a time like this where you've had an election of people so different. Okay, a couple of questions. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Sir, you just spent the better part of an hour explaining why Americans should choose you and not your opponent. Yesterday you said on Twitter, be careful what you wish for. I guess the question is, do you see yourself as the underdog in this race? Do you see yourself losing in the fall?
No, I don't. I think we have really good poll numbers. They're not suppression polls, they're real polls. You look at the intercoastal in Florida, you look at the lakes, you see thousands of boats with Trump signs, American signs. You've got the Trump-Pence sign all over. You look at what's going on. You look at bikers for miles and miles riding up highways proudly with their signs. Look, we won a race where it was the same thing, 2016. We had polls that were fake. They turned out to be fake. Not all. A couple of them got it right. 3 of them, to be exact. 3 of them. One of them was unsuspecting. But they got it right. They were very proud of it. But we had in 2016 something even more so, but we got in, and we had 306 to, I guess, 223, which was a tremendous margin of difference. You remember they all said he cannot get to 270. I went to Maine a number of times where we just freed up lobster fishing and fishing. They took away 5,000 square miles from Maine. I just opened it up, and I just got rid of tariffs in China, and we're working on European Union, which charge our fishermen tariffs. And I said, you're not going to do that. So we freed it up for Maine. But if you take a look, we went up there recently. There were crowds, thousands of people lined up going over to a factory where we were opening up for. We're making swabs, a beautiful big new factory making swabs. I think that the enthusiasm now is greater, and maybe far greater than it was in 2016. I think a lot of people don't want to talk about it. I think they're not going to say, hey, I'm for Trump, I'm for Trump. They don't want to go through the process, and I fully understand that because the process is not fair. The media doesn't treat us fairly. They never have, and perhaps they never will. But maybe they will when we turn this around for a second time, and it's going to happen very quickly. When we turn it around for a second time, maybe they will. I think we're doing very well in the polls, and I think you have a silent majority, the likes of which this country has never seen before. This is a very important election. We've done a great job. We had to turn it off, as I said, turn it off, and now we've started it again. As you know, they announced 2 weeks ago record job numbers, almost 5 million people, and that beat the last month, which was also a record, 2.8 million people. Nobody's ever done what we've done, and now we're doing it twice. And I think by Election Day, you're going to see some incredible numbers. The third quarter is going to be really good. Fourth quarter is going to be great, but next year is going to be one of the best economic years. So hopefully I'll be able to be the president where we say, look at the great job I did.
At this point.
I think great. I think we have a great chance. I think we're going to have a lot of people show up. I'm very worried about mail-in voting because I think it's subject to tremendous fraud and being rigged. You see that Paterson, New Jersey, where I believe it was 20% of the vote was fraudulent. It was all sorts of things happened. I understand a mailman was recently indicted someplace for playing games with the mail-in ballots. You'll have tremendous fraud if you do these mail-in ballots. Now, absentee ballots are okay, because absentee ballots, you have to get applications, you have to go through a process. If I'm here and I vote in Florida, you get an absentee ballot, but you have to go through a process. Absentee ballots are great. But mail-in voting, where a governor mails millions of ballots to people all over the state, California, millions and millions of ballots as an example, and then they come back, they don't come back, who got them? Did you forget to send them to a Republican area or a Democrat area, I guess you could say? But if you take a look at all of the unbelievable fraud that's been involved with mail-in voting over the last even short period of while, but look at Paterson, New Jersey. It was a massive error and a massive miscalculation, and there was incredible fraud. Look at the city council, what's happened to it. This is one place, but you have many places, and they're all over. Yes, please.
Thank you, sir. I want to know, when's the last time you spoke with President Xi of China, and do you plan to speak with him in the near future?
No, I haven't spoken to him. Well, no, I don't. I have no plan to speak to him. Yeah,
And
please
was
go.
there a follow-up?
So, do you want to do a follow-up?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. Is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was hospitalized today with an infection. Wanted to know if you had any reaction to that news.
No, I wish her the best. I hope she's better. I didn't hear that, actually. She was just hospitalized? No, that's too bad. No, I wish her the best. She's actually giving me some good rulings. Okay? So you know that, right? People were surprised. No, I wish her the absolute best. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. So you were mentioning the travel bans, and I wonder, when do you plan to review that? Because the European countries are in the situation is under control, much a better place than the U.S., and there is no ban for other hotspots like Russia and India. So what will be the criteria to change that? And another question.
Well, you know, we've banned for Europe, and at some point that'll come off, and we're dealing with them all the time. The relationship's very good. They just don't treat us very well on trade. They have been very unfair to us over many, many decades, and we're doing that. It's very easy to solve. I was all set to solve it, actually, and then we got hit with the plague. But we have a travel ban on various countries, and that travel ban remains until such time as we say it doesn't remain.
And
We
Mr.
want our country safe. We don't, unlike Biden, we don't want to have criminals pouring into our country. We don't want to have open borders. We're not going to have that. And we want to take care of our police. We want to actually fund our police, not defund them. And we're not going to abolish our police, and we're not going to make our military small and weak, because probably, or at least at top of the level, we need our military right now. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So how do you think that the America First policy can work during a pandemic? Aren't you concerned that this could actually damage the U.S. and make China more influence around the world?
Okay, look, my policy is America First. We've lost hundreds of billions of dollars a year with China and many other countries. And what we're doing is just handing everybody everything. It's just sad. I've watched it. I've looked at it. We did the U.S.-Mexico. You saw that, USMCA. We made a very fair deal on trade. We had the worst deal ever, right? You know that. We had the worst deal ever, and it replaced that. It replaced that horrible NAFTA deal that was one of the worst trade deals ever made. I'll tell you, the only deal that might be worse is the WTO, World Trade Organization. Maybe worse. OAN, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your administration has taken tangible steps to ensure that Chinese companies are not taking advantage of our U.S. stock markets, our trade. Last week, your administration sent a letter to the Railroad Retirement Board asking them to reconsider investments in Chinese defense firms.
Meaning not to invest.
Correct.
That's cool.
So where is that request now, and are you taking tangible actions to ensure that U.S. investments don't continue to fund
Yes.
defense firms in
Yes,
China?
and you'll see more coming. This was a very important bill that we signed, but you're going to see more coming over the next short period of time. But yes, we don't want them investing in Chinese military companies, okay?
Letters, I mean, what actions can be taken to ensure that does not happen?
Well, you have a lot of actions we can take, including the increase. You know, right now people don't know China's paying a lot of tariffs. We made a China deal, and they bought just, I think, the third highest amount of corn ever in world history. They just bought from us the highest amount, which is great for our farmers. But I view it differently than I did before I made the deal. When I made the deal, I thought this was a great deal. After what happened to us, what happened to the world coming from China, I view it much differently. But we can impose massive tariffs on China if we want, and other countries if we want. And we'll see. We just want to be treated fairly. We want a level playing field. Our farmers were never treated properly by anybody, and they were targeted by China. You know, I paid our farmers $28 billion over a 2-year period because they were targeted to that amount of money, to that exact amount of money, 28. It was 16 billion, and it was 12 billion, 28 over a 2-year period, and we gave $28 billion to our farmers. That's why they're all here. And now they're doing very well. Our farmers are doing very well because we made really great trade deals. USMCA just kicked in. The China deal, they're buying a lot. They are buying a lot. We'll say that. They're buying a lot. A lot of people ask, how are they doing on the trade deal? They're buying a lot. So I want to thank everybody, and we'll be having these conferences. Again, we're going to be signing an immigration act very soon. It's going to be based on merit. It's going to be very strong. We're going to work on DACA because we want to make people happy. And I'll tell you, even conservative Republicans want to see something happen with DACA. The Democrats had their chance for 3 years to do something with DACA, and they always turned it down. They always turned it down. They used it as politics. I'm using it to get something done. But we'll be signing a very powerful immigration act. It'll be great. It'll be merit-based. The country's tried to get it for 25 or 30 years. It'll be strong on the border, but you'll come in legally, and you'll be able to come in legally. And very importantly, we'll be taking care of people from DACA in a very Republican way. Republicans, I've spoken to many Republicans, and some would like to leave it out, but really they understand that it's the right thing to do. So we're going to be taking care of DACA. We will be doing for DACA what the Democrats had a chance to do, and they never did it, okay? Thank you all very much.
Number of deaths in Florida, what do you advise these governors or senators to do?